Hey everyone, Dr. Kuniak with a weekly video lecture. I was looking through the comments and the discussion related to the Santray and cinema therapy presentation, and I really liked this sort of. I liked all the presentations, but I liked the grouping of these two because they were so different, and it really spoke to. And I saw this in a number of the comments. It really spoke to the number of, or the ability to kind of do just about anything with creative counseling. That so long as you, my advice is always to root it in something theoretical, but at that point you can pretty much do anything that makes sense that's going to reach the client. And I talked about that a little bit in the last video lecture. Um, I think that some of my most useful metaphors in counseling have come uh, from film or TV or things like that, things that I feel like my clients can connect closely to. So I want to talk a little bit about some of those metaphors and how I've used them. And then I wanted to highlight the sand tray work is really fascinating. And there is a kind of curriculum to sand tray. There's a training process that goes through there if you really want to do it well. Um, that doesn't mean you can't just kind of pick it up and use it. But I have a colleague who is formally trained in sand tray counseling. And so in her office, she has tons and tons of figurines to she kind of everywhere she travels she tries to find new little figures to put in her um in her resources for her sand tray work. So I think it really speaks to the creativity of the counselor as well as the client, and just affords you opportunities all over the place. I enjoyed watching her post when she was traveling through Europe years ago, and so every little curio shop that she went into, she found little figures and was posting them, and then showed them all in her cabinets where she decided to have them find a home. And I thought that that was just a really clever use of counseling. I did a sand tray intervention once with action figures. It's all I had on hand, and so I brought that out to the client, and then it kind of doubly, because it was interesting to the client. They were able to kind of take some of those figures and speak to attributes that the different characters possessed that they related to the people that they were using them to represent. So it really created kind of a rich series of interventions. So sand tray work is just really fascinating to me, and I think you saw a great example of it in the presentation. Additionally, with cinema counseling or cinema therapy, some of my best interventions, some of my best metaphors have been so from the film Batman Begins. If you haven't watched it, I recommend it just because it does have some great themes to it. But there's a line in there where Bruce Wayne, who, spoiler alert, I guess, is Batman, as a kid in a flashback falls into, I think it was a well on their property, and his dad, who is a physician, rescues him. And so his dad tells him, he apparently has said this many times to him through his childhood, but he uses the line, um, why do we fall, Bruce? And the answer is so that we can learn to pick ourselves back up. And so I think that just little phrase has reached a lot of clients. From the Lord of the Rings books and films, there's a great line where Gandalf the wizard is talking to Frodo the hobbit, and he says, they're referencing Gollum while they're in the mines of Moria, and Gollum. Many of my clients hadn't seen the Lord of the Rings movies when I was working in drug and alcohol counseling at the time. Um, Many less had read the books. But so I showed a clip from the movie, and I showed this clip where Gandalf and Frodo were talking about Gollum. And Gollum, if you're not familiar with the story, he was once essentially a hobbit too, and he had taken the ring. He had stumbled across the ring, and he kept it for hundreds of years. It kept him alive, but it kind of poisoned his body and mind, and that's part of the story, is that the ring corrupts those that possess it. And so Frodo makes a comment and says it's a pity that Bilbo, his uncle, who had encountered Gollum years before, it's a pity that he didn't kill him when he had the chance. And Gandalf says, "Pity. It was pity that stayed Bilbo's hand. Many that live deserve death, but some who die deserve life. Can you give it to them, Frodo?" And so that idea of like, you know, what power do you have, and is it your right to do this, or to use these, to use your influence to decide who has the right to live or die, resonated with some of my clients. It spoke to the powerlessness and unmanageability themes that they were working with. Another great quote from that scene, just a little bit earlier, is Gandalf says that he explains how Gollum was taken by the ring and all this, and he says, Gollum hates and loves the ring as he hates and loves himself. And that particularly resonated with my clients. This idea that, for them, I think it can work globally, but from those clients at the time, I think that the theme of they hated and loved their substance of choice, whatever that was, as much as they struggled with their inner turmoil, the pain that they had experienced that maybe had led them to self-medicating, or the pain that they had experienced through their usage history, the pain that they had caused others, which that grief and shame cycle that makes people then go back and try to numb themselves, which only causes more pain and causes them to try to to feel grief and shame again, and to numb themselves again. That process really resonated with that quote. Another one that I've heard more recently that I've used with a couple of clients was from the Disney Marvel series WandaVision. I won't spoil it's relatively new, so I won't spoil it for anyone, but there's a line where the character the Vision, speaking to Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, says, because she's still grieving the loss of her brother from an earlier set to the series. And so he says, let me see if I can get this right. What is grief but love persevering? And that has really resonated with several folks that I've shared that with, who wouldn't have come across that medium otherwise. But I really love that quote. What is grief but love persevering? So there are some, and those are just lines. Like, I'm just giving you metaphors based on lines from movies. There's some really powerful art out there in the form of film. It's very easy to digest, which I think is really helpful. I've been able to kind of assign movies to my clients. The movie Castaway is one that I used to, with Tom Hanks. If you've never watched that, that is an amazing sort of theme towards the end that resonates with many folks who are seeking counseling. The idea that you never know what the tide's going to bring in. And again, I won't spoil it, but watch the movie if you haven't seen it. Has resonated with a lot of my clients. Even movies like Transformers, the idea of their catchphrase "more than meets the eye" has resonated with some of my clients. But it's a lot easier to assign a movie and to talk about that movie then, and the themes that are apparent, than it is to try to get a client to find the time to really dig in and read a book. As much as I love reading, as you see, I recognize that, and I love film, so I think that that's easier to capture for people. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of echo some of the comments that I saw in the discussion boards, and I wanted to share some of my favorites. I have many, many more. There's a lot of really, really useful metaphors that are out there that I think, I think can really impact folks and enrich your counseling experience. So thank you for your time. I hope you've enjoyed this brief semester, and certainly reach out to me if I could be of any further help down your professional road.